Well, it's official. Last month marked my 10-year anniversary in Japan, and coincidentally also my 1-year anniversary on YouTube. I'm not really sure where the time went, but I think this occasion warrants a little bit of reflection, wouldn't you think? Unfortunately, if I had filmed this about a week earlier, the cherry blossoms would be in full bloom. Now, as you can see, there's just a few remnants left of them with some leaves sprouting out. But I don't know, maybe that means something. Maybe it's symbolic of something. I've always seen the cherry blossoms as a representation in a certain way of the Buddhist idea of, transience of things and the sort of ephemeral, fleeting nature of life. So I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with today's topic. But anyways, up there is the beautiful and majestic Matsuyama Castle. That's hopefully where we're going to make it today over the course of this video. But anyways, I often have these moments now, especially in the last couple of weeks since I reached that 10-year anniversary, where it just trips me out that my life is where it's at right now. I have a family and a daughter here in Japan, and I've lived here for 10 years now, which is the majority of my adult life. And, it's changed me in so many ways, but I can't really pinpoint what those changes have been in a lot of cases, because I've just really developed as a human being and as a mature adult and as a man here in Japan. So I don't know, I've done a lot of thinking and trying to figure out the ways in which I might be different if I lived in the States, or how it's shaped me here. And I'm still undeniably American. I've actually developed a lot of my political ideas and my notions about the world and my identity as an American person while living in Japan, interestingly enough. I look back on it 10 years ago and I go, well, I didn't actually even have any sense of political ideology, really. I didn't even really know what left-wing, right-wing meant and these basic concepts, and it's all shaped and taken form in my mind while I've been here in Japan, which is a strange thing to think, because I've spent maybe collectively a couple of months back in the States over the past 10 years. So a lot of it's just done by proxy and watching things online and thinking myself about stuff, because I sure as hell am not really picking that stuff up over here in Japan. But yeah, anyways, this is going to be a rambly video, I can already tell. But anyways, it's just been very, very trippy looking back on it and thinking about how far I've come. And I guess we could start by talking about what led me to Japan and what my life was like before that. I graduated from university back in California in 2010, and at the time I didn't really know what I was doing. I still felt like I had time to figure everything out. I took a little bit of time off after I graduated. I thought maybe I would go into graduate school soon after that, but I figured before I got into that, I should, have some adventure and figure some stuff out. When I was in college, I studied abroad in China and Vietnam for 3 months and learned a lot there. And then I went back to Asia again on a trip for a month with some friends after college. And I just figured I wasn't quite ready for graduate school yet. And my last trip to Asia really turned me on to the idea of maybe living here for a time. Initially, I thought about maybe moving to Hong Kong or somewhere like that, because I had a friend who lived there. But my friend who lived in Hong Kong turned me on to Japan. He said I should give it a shot, and that he had a really good time here before he moved to Hong Kong. And to be honest, I wasn't really that open to the idea, but eventually I looked into it and I got really excited, and it led me here. And it was really, I have to say that it was the right experience at the right time in my life, because back then, when I was in California and I graduated, I was in kind of a rough, I'm going to be huffing and puffing, by the way. Hopefully you won't judge me, this hill's really steep. But I had been going through a lot, I think, mentally and just financially, and I'm from a really affluent town in California, Santa Barbara. You probably heard of it. But I don't come from a very affluent family, so actually living there and making a life post-college with a history degree was not something that was really easy to do, and I wasn't motivated at all at the time. So yeah, there were just a lot of really tough things going on in my life at the time, and so I decided, you know, why don't I just take a shot at coming to Asia? Maybe it'll be a game changer. And so yeah, that's kind of what brought me here. I remember getting to Japan just thinking, wow, this is everything that I've ever wanted. It was, and this is not an exaggeration, it was like paradise to me. And part of me still thinks that. You know, over 10 years, of course, a lot changes, and you go through the honeymoon period, and eventually, you know, some semblance of the realities of life set back in again, even when you're in a new country, an exciting place like Japan. But I still in a lot of ways think that it is kind of a paradise. It's not perfect. There's a lot of things that are very frustrating about Japan, but at the time, especially when I first moved here, it was like great food. I made decent money. I could pay all my bills, which was really, really great. That was a huge change for me, which I loved a lot. Look at those castle foundations up there. It's so cool. But it was healing in a lot of ways. And I don't want to overstate this, but I think it healed me kind of mentally, physically, and in kind of a way like spiritually, I guess, even though it's not really something I usually talk in terms of. But I just felt renewed and refreshed, and yeah, I lived like a king. Great food, great adventures, constant traveling, vacations. Everything just seemed to become more simplified in terms of, you know, paying my bills and controlling my life and being in control of my life. But also, it expanded my horizons in a lot of ways. And, you know, just being a young guy, I was 25 at the time, lots of attention from people. People were excited to meet you. Lots of pretty girls, you know, all that stuff that a lot of people have experienced coming to Japan. And yeah, it was just wonderful for me. I can't really overstate that. I've traveled extensively across Asia, and I always tell people that Japan it's Asia, it's all the charm of Asia with none of the bullshit. And that's an overstatement, obviously. There's some of the bullshit, but if you travel to some of the kind of more developing countries that are less, you know, less affluent, you will get a lot of people trying to cheat you, and they're hounding you to buy stuff, and you get swindled easily. You always have to be on your guard. In some countries more than others. But in Japan, none of that is an issue. People are honest here. You very rarely have to actually keep your guard up. I mean, you always should, but you don't have to as much here, which is great. I remember the year mark was about to come up, and that was the time frame I'd kind of set for myself to live in Japan. And then I thought I would go to Hong Kong for a year and head back. I, you know, had some entanglements, let's say, back in the States, some emotional entanglements, as well as just this, you know, picture of my life ultimately being there, I guess. I mean, it was a vague picture. But anyways, the year mark came up, and I remember thinking, what? There's no way I'm ready to leave here yet, not even close. So yeah, I kind of threw my lot in then, I think, even if I didn't realize it, and ended up staying here. So, you know, how has Japan changed me? What has it taught me? I mean, it certainly has taught me to be a more polite and considerate human being. I think I pay attention to my actions these days much more than I ever did before. I think I'm more organized. I've always been, you know, a little bit of a clean freak, but I think that was refined. That tendency was refined after moving here. And I think it just gave me a new perspective on so many different things that I can't even really begin to get into them. But the biggest one, I think, for me was it showed me both what unites us as humans, but also how amazingly different we can be based on the culture we come from. Because a lot of what's said about Japan is true. There's a lot of cultural homogeneity here. Things are very orderly, clean, people are polite. There tends to be a level of consideration for your fellow countrymen that we maybe have lost, or that we once had but don't have so much anymore back in the United States. And there's just things that we've never had in the United States here in terms of cultural sensibilities and social awareness and things like that, which is really, really nice in a lot of ways, but not so great in some other ways. This is obviously an exaggeration and it's not a one-for-one comparison, but I often make the analogy based on Brave New World to describe the differences between Japanese culture and life in Japan and American culture and life in America. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. In Brave New World, that new society that's supposedly a utopia has done away with risk and fear and any sort of real vulnerability because they've made everything set and defined. Then the other culture that's displayed in the book Brave New World is the one of the natives, Native Americans back in the United States, and they have a closer connection to art and individual expression and the exploring of ideas that can sometimes be scary and can sometimes be dangerous, but nevertheless they're beautiful and there's something to be said for being able to explore those ideas. And I think in the States we express ourselves openly and in different ways, and there's a lot of eccentricity, but sometimes I think it goes too far, and that's why we have a lot of the problems we have in the States, because we don't consider the unit, the cultural unit, the community as much as they do here in Japan. And in Japan, they do consider that stuff very carefully, but of course you lose a lot when you do that. Just like in the book Brave New World, you don't have the innovation, you don't have the expression, you don't have a lot of things are kind of bottled up and stifled inside of people. It can be, I don't know, kind of a repressed society, and you see the negative sides of that here in Japan. So I think you go with one, you're going to gain a lot, but you're going to lose a lot, whether you go with the American style or the Japanese model. But for me, as an American living in Japan, one of the great things is that you get to enjoy all the benefits of that order and that, kind of that smoothing over of social friction and just friction of life. But you don't have to actually be beholden to it in the same way that Japanese people can be. So it's almost the best of both worlds. I still get to be American and no one judges me for being that, in most cases, that is. But I get to enjoy the fruits of all the Japanese people's thousands of years of labor in creating a country that is so harmonious. So I don't know, it's a very interesting thing, and it's given me a lot, and it's given me, in a lot of ways, a false sense of the comfort of life. And that leads me to the downsides, I think, the things that I've perhaps lost by living in Japan. And one of them is just, it's made me soft, for sure. It's raised my expectations to an unrealistic level in terms of service, cleanliness, great food, affordability, social safety nets, all that stuff. And, it's been really fun being the center of attention, like I mentioned earlier, and, feeling important and feeling valued. But for a lot of people, and this included myself early on, it can lead to you getting a bit of a big head, I think, and getting a little bit arrogant or, having an overinflated ego here. And I think I've moved past that, but for a while that was the case, because it was just like, wow, everyone thinks I'm amazing. I must be amazing, right? And it can be hard for some people to come back to reality. At least it takes them a while to do that, and that was certainly the case for me. I guess I could also say that it made me too comfortable and complacent as well. Having everything be so comfortable and smooth here made me really content in almost every way, but it made it really difficult for me to want to leave. And I'm not saying I regret staying here so long, but I think I could have been working on myself and furthering my career and also my own personal development while living here. But I was just so comfortable that I think I got a little bit too complacent. And it's had a lot of benefits in my life, but also it's come at some costs, for sure. One of them being that I really just didn't continue going to school. I never got a graduate degree. I plan to rectify that in the future, but professionally I've moved up the ladder for sure, but I could have been doing a lot more to diversify, I think, my skills for the future. And, that's coming back to bite me a little bit these days. Maybe that's a topic for another video, but So yeah, that's pretty much it. I won't bore you anymore with a lot of these details. These are all topics that I could flesh out at length and in more detail in the future, but I've also now been on YouTube for a year, and I just want to say really quickly that it's been a year now, and I've learned a lot about what I want for the channel and what I plan to do with it going forward. And for those of you who have watched more than one of my videos, it's probably not a whole lot of you, I do appreciate you sticking it out with me and hanging in there with me, because I do not really know what I'm doing most of the time when it comes to video anything. I don't have a whole lot of like an artistic sense in terms of making videos, but I feel like I do have some good ideas, and hopefully my videos will continue to get better going into the future. So in conclusion, I guess moving to Japan was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I think I can say that without any doubt, any shadow of a doubt, and I really wouldn't change it for the world. If only for the fact that it gave me my beautiful wife and daughter, and that's, maybe sappy, but it's the truth. I would never change that for the world. And I think after all this time, I've learned enough and gained enough perspective that I'm compelled to share it with you here on this channel, which is why I made it. And I've experienced enough amazing and sometimes harrowing things for more than an entire lifetime, I think. More than a lifetime's worth of that sort of stuff. And I really can't wait to share it with all of you in the form of various video formats. Trust me, I have some crazy stories here in Japan, that's for sure. So yeah, anyways, thank you for those of you who've continued to watch my content, and for those of you who are new to the channel, I hope I can give you more content that you'll be interested in the future. And I really just can't wait to continue to unpack this amazing world for you and for anyone else who comes to this channel later in the years to come. Until next time, everyone, take care and have a wonderful spring.